Good morning and welcome to today's Future of Work Leadership Conference hosted by the Bellevue Chamber of Commerce. My name is Scott McClellan. I am Vice President for University Affairs at Seattle University and pleased to serve on the board of the Bellevue Chamber. Bellevue is not only where I live. With the new normal, it is also where I can now say I have worked for the past 4 months right here from my home. So if you hear a dog barking or a 4-year-old screaming at his big brothers, or see a cat crossing my screen, you will then have a full appreciation for my new normal. I was invited to kick things off today because of our involvement with today's event, specifically helping arrange for you to hear from one of our very best and most outstanding professors who will be introduced in a few minutes. Just a quick word about Seattle U. I think most of you know we are a mid-sized Jesuit university, and that we provide an academically rigorous, values-driven education that is grounded in the liberal arts and the humanities, with an emphasis on community-engaged and experiential learning and a commitment to justice, service, and improving the human condition for all. We are also known for our high rankings and highly respected programs across business, nursing, the arts and sciences, law, and science and engineering, or our STEM programs, which are part of our fastest growing college, the College of Science and Engineering. Thanks to the generous support and partnership of companies like PACCAR, Amazon, Microsoft, and others, we are nearing completion of our new state-of-the-art Center for Science and Innovation, which is set to open on schedule before the start of school in fall of 2021, and is our largest ever capital project. So we're very excited about that. But all of what we do at Seattle U really starts and ends with our great faculty and the great teaching and individualized learning experience they provide our students. And we're very excited you get to hear from such a great one today. Thank you for letting me kick things off this morning. Hello to all our alumni on the call. Our alumni network is now 83,000 strong, with more than half living, working, and running businesses right here in the region, many in Bellevue. And with that, I turn it over to the one and only, the distinguished president and CEO of the Chamber, Joe Fain.
Thank you so much, Scott, for kicking today's program off and for taking the time to be with us. I'm absolutely proud to be one of those Seattle University alumni that you speak of there. Seattle University has been a great partner for the Chamber. They've been so supportive, and we're really proud to have Scott as one of our board members, and extremely grateful for the great speaker that they brought to us here today. The Chamber's been doing a lot during the shutdown and during the quarantine and COVID. And one of the things that we've been doing lately is being a leading distributor of masks and other protective equipment to help businesses and residents get back to work safely. Over the past few weeks, we've helped close to 800 companies access PPE and provided masks to over 11,000 households right here in Bellevue. These supplies were provided free of charge as part of our partnership with the City of Bellevue and King County's Office of Emergency Management. The Chamber office will be open again today for another round of pickups, but supplies are running out very, very quickly. So if you've not yet had a chance to reserve your masks for your company or your customers, please make sure that you visit bellevuechamber.org or just click the link on your screen right now. Today's program is the 5th in our series of 10 programs featuring breakout talents and leading experts on the future of work. Next week, on July 17th, we're joined by Andy Keisch, founder of Atomo Coffee. His breakthrough beanless, bitterless, molecular coffee, can't even say all those things. He is an incredible innovator and entrepreneur, and he's going to share not only a little bit about his buttery tech, but also tell us about how sustainable innovations like his are the key to the next generation of environmental protection. Then on July 24th, Microsoft Corporate Vice President Gurdeep Singh will give us a glimpse into the future of manufacturing, automation, and robotics. If you haven't already signed up for the remainder of our series, click the link on your screen, and don't forget to post on social media about your experience as a Future of Work Leadership Conference attendee by tagging at Bellevue Chamber for your social media posts. A special offer for today only. We'll be monitoring Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram throughout the program, and we will randomly select one post and provide the poster with a free promotional opportunity for their organization or product during next week's webcast. So please start posting today, and remember to tag us at Bellevue Chamber. I'd like to thank our sponsors supporting this series. The Bellevue community, including City Hall, is very proud to be welcoming thousands of Amazonians to Bellevue over the next few years, and we are deeply grateful for their support as this year's presenting sponsor. We also want to thank our major sponsors, AT&T, Microsoft, Puget Sound Energy, King County, and the City of Bellevue, our corporate sponsors, Falco Salt and the Port of Seattle, and our associate sponsors, ASIS Northwest Network and the University of Washington. Finally, I'd like to recognize our growing list of virtual conference table captains. We're excited to recognize ARVR Studio, GMI, Her Interactive, Accelerate, Seattle Children's, AAA of Washington, HDR, the Partners Group, and Sweeney Conrad. For information on bringing your team the recognition and benefits that come along with the table captain package, please contact the Chamber. Now, before we get going, I want to remind you that this is an interactive program that thrives on your participation. So each of our speakers will be taking questions at the conclusion of their remarks, and it is up to you to use the chat and Q&A tabs on your screen to get in our quest to get answers to those questions. So now I'd like to hand things over to another one of our major sponsors, Margaret Hopkins, Vice President and Chief Information Officer for Puget Sound Energy. Margaret is responsible for leading PSE's technology and cybersecurity strategy, very relevant for our topic today, bringing secure and reliable power to over 1 million customers here in Western Washington. A huge thank you to Puget Sound Energy. Please welcome Margaret Hopkins.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Bellevue Chamber team. I'm so pleased to be here with all of you today and to be able to introduce our distinguished speakers. At Puget Sound Energy, I'm a senior vice president there, and I'm responsible for all of technology and cybersecurity. So it's terrific for me to be able to introduce the two of these speakers because it's right up my alley, and it's something that's near and dear to my heart. At Puget Sound Energy, as you can imagine, we're all going through many of the same things that you are all going through in your worlds. We're dealing with working from home, we're dealing with the pandemic and learning our way through this. And in my field in particular, with over 2,000 people now working from home, we have challenges making sure that their systems are running, that webinars like this work or our WebExes work, and of course, protecting our systems remotely now. Cyber criminals love things that make people vulnerable like a pandemic, and they'll do everything they can to take advantage of that situation. So not only because we're critical infrastructure and we're a specific target for cyber criminals, but that requires us to have increased vigilance and awareness. But just in this situation that we're all in with COVID, it just heightens our need to be vigilant and be aware and to really understand this very important topic. And so I think that it's wonderful that we have these two speakers with us today because they're really going to shed some light in their insights and help us all be a little bit smarter in this field. So first, I'm happy to introduce Roshanak Roshandel, who is an associate professor in the Department of Computer Science and Software Engineering at Seattle University. Her general research interests are in the field of software engineering, and her research spans the areas of software architecture, software reliability and dependability, and software product families. Specifically, she has developed techniques and tools to design and analyze software systems architecture. Then we'll hear from Special Agent Joel Martini. Joel is with the Federal Bureau of Investigation in Seattle, and he has been with the FBI since 2011 and has worked in Seattle as both a computer forensics examiner and special agent. Special Agent Martini is currently assigned to Seattle's FBI Cyber Task Force and is primarily investigating criminal cyber crimes. Please welcome our first speaker, Roshanak.
To get Roshanak on the line here. I don't believe she's connected and she's probably talking, but we cannot hear her. So maybe the microphone is no longer synced. So ask her to maybe turn that off and give it another shot, and we'll be back up and running in no time.
Okay, so can I go ahead and get started? Well, great. Well, thank you again for having me here. It's a pleasure to be presenting at this webinar today. As a resident of Bellevue, I'm very excited about this opportunity and to be talking about security and privacy, which has been my research over the last few years, and talking about big data and ethics related to that. So I'm going to start by saying that every one of us has one of these in our pocket right now. And in fact, in addition to these, we also have laptops and iPads and Kindles and smartwatches that help us live our modern life today. And it turns out that actually average age in the United States for kids to get their first smartphone is 10 years old. And there are over 276 million smartphones in the United States and 3.5 billion smartphones worldwide. That's about essentially half of the world population has one of these in their pockets. So these are great devices, and they come with a lot of apps like this. These apps help us have access to services, entertainment, banking, shopping, education, productivity, and a lot of other things. And it turns out that, again, an average person has about 80 apps on their phones, and these apps not only have access to the data that we store on our phones, like pictures and shopping history and location history and all of those, they also collect a lot of data from their users. And so when we talk about big data, we are talking about a huge part of it is this data that is collected from our devices on a daily basis. It also turns out that when we buy one of these phones, if you ask the average person how often do they go in to the settings of the phone or the settings of the applications to modify the settings to match their privacy preferences, the answer is never. So an average person does not actually change the settings, the default settings that these devices or apps are delivered with. So these, over the last couple of years, 5 years or so, companies are providing us with a lot more flexibility and ability to control our privacy and to set our privacy preferences, but those are typically cumbersome and difficult to manage for an average user. These privacy settings have come to fruition because of new laws like the new California Consumer Privacy Act, or pressure from public after scandals like Cambridge Analytica. However, if these new privacy settings are essentially not default and people are not aware or educated to modify them to match their privacy preferences, we are actually back to square one. We are not really giving our customers a lot of ability to control their privacy. So again, these devices are the vehicle by which there is a lot of data collected, and we hear big data a lot. So I figured we should talk about how big is big data, and I'm going to give you some numbers to kind of understand that. So last year in 2019, every 60 seconds, there were 3.7 million queries processed by Google. So that's every minute, over 3 million queries were processed by Google. Every 60 seconds, 1 million logins were attempted on Facebook. And every 60 seconds, 4.5 million videos were viewed on YouTube. Those are huge numbers when you think about it. Today, about 1.7 megabyte of data is created every second for every person on Earth. Today, the size of the digital universe is estimated to be at 44 zettabytes of data. And if you're like me, I have no good way of visualizing or knowing how much is a zettabyte of data. I'm going to attempt to do something and see if it works. So if we were to estimate the number of sand grains across all of the beaches on Earth they are about 1 zettabyte of data. So now I'm comparing sands with data that doesn't really work very well, but 44 zettabytes, that's 44 times the number of sand dunes all over Earth, is the amount of data that we currently are accumulating in our digital universe. So that's pretty big. Most of our cars are now connected to the internet in one way or another, and by 2023, 70% of the cars will be connected to the internet worldwide. Also, we are in the middle of the IoT revolution, and IT devices are obviously another sort of major set of devices that collect data. And by 2025, it's expected that 75 billion IoT devices will be connected in the world. And that number is pretty big. Today, that number is about 20 billion. And 20 billion is double where we were just 2 years ago. So back in 2018, we were at 11 billion. So this is growing very, very fast. So there's a lot of data that's kind of getting collected by this. And to make matters worse, within the next 10 years, it's expected that 9 out of 10 people around the world aged 6 and above would be digitally active. That's they are also producing to this ecosystem of big data and the data that's getting collected. So this is not actually bad news. Big data is great. It as a customer, it helps us have personalized services. We get resources that we need. We get access to the modern life necessities that we can't live without today. It also gives us better deals and savings. And on the business side, it helps businesses make the smarter business moves and make better, more efficient operational decisions and improve their profit. So all of this is great news. However, as consumers, we don't know much about security and security of the infrastructure that supports this data and privacy of our own personal data. Specifically, it's our right as customers to know how our data is being used, and that's hard to understand or track or know about across various kinds of companies and applications that we use. To make things more complicated, you would want to have some kind of a regulatory environment that protects the consumers in this regard. And despite record-shattering data breaches that have happened over the past few years, the response at the federal level essentially has been piecemeal legislations that address specific domains. So those are patchwork of sector-specific laws that address, let's say, healthcare data with HIPAA and education data with FERPA. So legislation works like a stick, and we usually don't like a lot of that because it hampers innovation in many ways. So we really want an approach that combines, brings carrots to the table. It's healthier for you. So companies can be more innovative. They can invent on behalf of the customer, make our lives better. But they have to do this in a way that's responsible and they are accountable to their consumers, and they're transparent as they do this. So with all of this, with not having kind of overarching regulations like they have in Europe, California's new law is an exception. What can we do? Is this really problematic? Actually, it's a great time to be in tech. With advances in AR, VR, and machine learning and robotics and artificial intelligence, we are actually at a place where we can finally see a lot of what computing can do for us over the next decade or two. So what we really need in here is to be able to have a different perspective on the data privacy and people's privacy and their rights. So I'm going to talk about what we can do in terms of what the private sector can do and what the education sector can do. And I would say that on the private sector side, when we think about the nature of the security and cyber attacks that have happened over the last couple of decades, see that attacks have evolved from infrastructure attacks, so purely security attacks, to massive data breaches that have privacy implications, essentially. And then with the large volume of data that's getting collected and the rise of machine learning and analytics, there is a ton of different kind of challenges that we have ahead of us. So the threats have evolved from things like unauthorized access to unintended inferences. And I'll give you a few examples of these unintended inferences that impact us directly. So for example, our anonymity is under attack, and there are researchers who've used machine learning techniques to basically look at the text that has been written and determine who the author of that text is. The same kind of technique has been applied to software developer and the code, and they can determine which software developer wrote the piece of code. So that impacts our anonymity, essentially. In terms of political leanings, there are a group of researchers use machine learning to look at the Google databases of all of the neighborhood images that they collect, and they were able to relate that to the local political affiliation of the people by looking at the kinds of cars that exist in the neighborhood. Our intimate health data are under attack. Researchers were able to use machine learning to look at the history of our internet browsing and basically be able to detect the beginning of Alzheimer's disease. So there is a lot, and we are all aware of all of the financial impacts that the cyber attack can have on our credit cards and bank accounts and all of that. So there is a lot at stake here, and there is a lot that needs to happen because privacy and security are converging, and we need to be looking at things in a way where we have an opportunity to make the right decisions here. And tech has become really, really powerful. And as people in tech, we need to be asking a different kind of questions and to do the right thing with the superpowers that we have. So I'm going to talk a little bit about resilience. I mean, the financial impact of these cyber attacks are very clear. The legal and regulatory changes need to happen to some extent to help us have more carrots so that we can do the right thing. But as tech companies, we really need to focus on building resilient technology. And that would mean the type of technology that helps us limit the severity and severity of the security breaches and privacy and data breaches, to keep our operations continuous and continuously plan out protections and plan for worst case scenario. And I would say the other part of this is to put the customers to be very first, to work on building trust with our customers, and building trust with customers requires us to be transparent in how we approach their data and their privacy, and acknowledging that this is their data, not our data as the companies. Protecting privacy is now impacting the bottom line. So finally, we are at a place where it's really, really important, more important than ever to think about the people's data and privacy of those data. And I want to remind everybody here that we've been here before. We've done this before. About 20 years ago, software security was really, really weak as a discipline. There were security engineers and there were software developers, and the two groups didn't really talk very much. And a company in our backyard, namely Microsoft, came to the rescue and basically said, we are going to change this. And what they did was that they halted all the operations. They trained every technical person at Microsoft, every developer, to understand enough of security and enough of threat modeling approaches, for example, to be able to understand what constitutes good coding, what constitutes good secure design. And I can tell you that I remember when this happened, when Microsoft started training every new employee and all of the existing employees. And I can tell you that 20 years later today, I'm thrilled to see that, for example, at Amazon, when a junior developer puts together a little documentation to showcase their latest design and specification for a service that they are developing, threat modeling is the first thing they have to do, or the second thing they have to do. So it's we've made that bridge. We have created this bridge where we are educating people, and by educating them, we are asking them, we are forcing them to ask the right questions. Now, what we have to do is to do the same thing in the era of big data and in the era of privacy and trust, and make sure that everybody is educated and equipped to ask the right question. They are taught to ask the right questions. Should this tool be built? What is the purpose of collecting this data? Who is going to access this data? Does the customer know what we are doing with their data? Is this ethical? And these are questions that we don't actually know all of the exactly how to answer a lot yet. But that's where the education sector comes in. And again, part of what we need to do for the future of successful technology is to educate and train people to ask the right question. The power of technology in people's lives is undeniable today. And I strongly believe that tech is good, and I want to make sure that that narrative stays that way, that people are not feeling ambivalent about what the tech companies are doing with their data. So it's our ethical duty to design and build ethical technology. And that means defining what ethics means, being able to measure that, go in our education, go beyond teaching technology and computing skills and combine that with humanities and ethics. And I think STEM education on its own, without this sort of humanities component and ethical component, is really, really deficient to address the needs of our future of society. And I'm really proud to be part of an organization, a university, that really it takes its mission of educating the whole person seriously. And I can tell you that a STEM education at Seattle U is very much integrated with humanities and ethics, and our graduates and alums are equipped with asking the right questions and knowing their role on a team and being able to influence the people around them. And I'm going to finish by leaving you with a quote from Brad Smith from Microsoft. As you might know, Seattle University is in the process of building a brand new STEM building. I'm very excited that my department will be moving into this new building next year. And Brad says that a STEM education coupled with liberal art background will be a powerful combination in the future, and that the future of technology will require developers to approach their work in a responsible way. And the Jesuits are known for challenging students to think responsibly for themselves and for their communities. Thank you very much.
Very blessed to have you back in just a few minutes after our next presenter. So if you are on the line and have some great questions to ask Roshanak, please make sure you use your Q&A feature on the screen there and go ahead and get those questions in the pipeline. And in the meantime, I'm going to probably bid adieu to any of the folks that are watching this program on our on-demand service after we record these, because our next speaker, for security reasons, we have to make sure that we're respecting some of the standards here at the FBI. And so our next speaker is Joel Martini, who is a special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigations here in Seattle. He's been with the FBI since 2011 and has worked as both a computer forensic examiner and a special agent. And we're very blessed to have his expertise and insight into how the criminal aspects of cybersecurity are impacting both our economy and each of us as individuals. So Joel, welcome.